This is Steven Stamkos, and after getting eliminated in 5 games to their division rival and eventual cup champion, this is the look of a longtime captain who's given everything to his team, coaches, and fans, knowing very well it may be his last time. Except it didn't have to be this way. Since Steven Stamkos was eligible for an extension at the beginning of last season, the Tampa Bay Lightning didn't seem very interested in playing ball. A team known for giving long-term contracts early to its core players decided to play hardball for a second time in the Stamkos negotiations. If you remember back in 2016, where Stamkos was rumored to be pretty much going everywhere, Tampa didn't re-sign Stamkos until June 29th. That's 2 days before he would have become a UFA. Prior to this year's free agency, it was reported that the Lightning offered Stamkos $3 million for 8 years. To give you an idea of how disrespectful of an offer that is, Stamkos scored 40 goals and recorded 41 assists this past season. Meanwhile, Ryan Lomberg and Dakota Joshua, who combined scored 39 points, got $2 million and $3.2 million on their. After that, the most coveted free agent this offseason took his talents to Nashville and is now joining another player who got snubbed from his team. Now, NHL captains being snubbed and disrespected isn't anything new. Some captains have been disrespected and mistreated because of their health issues. In 2000, Eric Lindros was stripped of his captaincy after he criticized the team's medical staff for failing to diagnose his second concussion of the season. GM Bobby Clarke stripped Lindros of his captaincy, and then Lindros was ostracized from the team until returning for Game 6 and 7 of the 2000 series against the Devils. That result didn't end well at all. Other captains have simply been disrespected because of their performance and/or politics in the locker room. This Stamkos situation, however, is unique. On the surface, this may seem strictly like a business decision based on age, but depending on how it shakes out, it may shape how organizations make tough decisions in the future. Now look, I'm not going to lie. Seeing Steven Stamkos in anything other than a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey just feels so wrong to look at. It's like seeing Brodeur in a St. Louis jersey or Modano in a Detroit jersey. Something just seems off about it. It especially makes it all the more puzzling when you break down Stamkos' game and what he can still bring to the team at age 34. For starters, Steven Stamkos is still one of the best shooters in the game. This doesn't mean a whole lot in 2024, but when adjusting for era, Stamkos is one of the best goal scorers the league has ever seen. Despite his track record and what he meant to the team, the Lightning's ruthless decision-making saw them go down a different path. And here's why. Offensively, Stamkos had a good year. Defensively, not so much. For the 12th time in 16 seasons, he scored more than a point per game as he put up 81 points in 79 games. He also posted a 40-goal season for the second time in 3 seasons and for the 7th time in his career. Now, where he was an absolute force was on the power play. He scored 19 goals and recorded 20 assists, which only saw Leon Draisaitl and Sam Reinhart score more on the man advantage. As usual, he did most of his damage from his office. Now, this is where Tampa may, and a big emphasis on may, struggle the most without Stamkos on the ice. The Tampa Bay Lightning power play has been phenomenal for years. In fact, last season, their power play was ranked first in the league while playing a 1-3-1 system. It had Hedman at the point, Kucherov on the right wing, Brandon Hagel down low, Point on the bumper, and Stamkos on the left wing. Now, what's made their power play so successful over the years is, yes, personnel, but mostly construction and chemistry. At every option, Tampa had a one-timer opportunity, which gave them a variety of ways to score. The main one being this set play between Point and Kucherov. You know, the one where Kucherov would fake the one-timer himself, only to brilliantly bump it over to Point in the slot for a better angle one-timer. Teams have certainly tried to adjust to this set play over the years, but when you have the chemistry that this entire power play has and the threat of Stamkos' shot, you can make creative plays like this when coverages focus their attention solely on Braden Point. Now, hey, if that's not working and teams are clamping down on that play, Kucherov can also have the option to just snap it straight to Stamkos cross ice for a ridiculous one-time blast. With how well Kucherov finds seams, they've been able to penetrate some of the best penalty kills in the league with this one option. Now lastly, all three of Kucherov, Hedman, and Stamkos would connect off a series of one-touch passes to eventually get the puck to Stamkos for a one-timer. All of these set plays work for two reasons: Stamkos' otherworldly shot and the fact that he's a righty on the left side. Now, in this free agency, Tampa made a choice to allocate the money that they would have given to Stamkos to a 29-year-old Jake Guentzel by giving him a 7-year deal at $9 million per season. Guentzel is a phenomenal player. He had 77 points in 67 games last season, and he's just shy of a point per game in the playoffs while also having a cup pedigree. If everything goes well for the Lightning, he will certainly help Tampa be more effective when 5-on-5. But the biggest question mark will be if he can effectively fit into Tampa's power play. Being a left-handed shot, it's presumed that Tampa will keep all of the same personnel and slot Guentzel on the left side where Stamkos used to be. This was where Guentzel had success last season on an abysmal Penguins power play, as he has the ability to create on that left side. But where he really started to look comfortable was when they shifted him to the bumper spot once he arrived in Carolina. But if you consider how great Point has been in this spot for Tampa and the fact that he aligns with Kucherov as a passing option, it likely means that Guentzel will slot in on the left side instead of the bumper. Now, unless he can catch and release a puck like Matthews from a cross-ice feed from Kucherov, Tampa will have to adjust without Stamkos being the final trigger piece to all these set plays. That being said, Tampa's coach John Cooper is one of the best in the game, and I don't doubt that he'll make some adjustments to maximize every player's strength on that power play. Now, how exactly does this change the dynamic for the Nashville Predators? Well, despite channeling the power of U2 last year to go on an insane run, the Preds' problems caught up to them in the first round when they were eliminated by Vancouver. Their biggest concern was their power play. It ranked 15th in the regular season, and it went an abysmal 2 for 22 in the first round against Vancouver, and ultimately ended up being their downfall. Enter Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. Despite their mid-power play, Nashville also played the same 1-3-1 formation that the Lightning did all season. With Stamkos and Marchessault inserted into this lineup, Nashville will have the same dangerous options that Tampa had. Stamkos will obviously replace Nyquist on that left flank, but with Marchessault being a perennial threat in the bumper spot, Nashville could potentially have one of the best power plays in the league next season. Stamkos, without a doubt, will help the Nashville Predators power play, but there are still red flags to his game. One reason Tampa wanted to get ahead of the curve was probably because of Stamkos' 5-on-5 offense. He had one 5-on-5 goal in November, and there was a stretch in December and January where he didn't score at even strength. Now, the great thing about Stamkos is he's a Swiss Army knife in the fact that he can play both the wing and center. According to Natural Stat Trick, he played 259 minutes of 5-on-5 with Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, and 233 minutes with Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli. Both lines generated a lot of offense, but they gave up just as much, if not more, on the defensive side of the puck. Stamkos finished a career worst -21 this season. Plus minus is a wonky stat, especially when you consider that almost any defensive breakdown are rarely one player's fault, but instead a series of small mistakes that several players make to create a negative result. Taking that in, GM Julien Brisebois made it clear that his primary offseason priority was making the Lightning a better defensive team. They've made some moves that align with this, while seemingly undoing it all with another. Nashville, on the other hand, will be a unique fit for Steven Stamkos. Systematically, Nashville's transition offense and in-zone play rely heavily on Roman Jossi's ability to jump up in the rush or create from the blue line. Pairing that type of style with a shooter like Stamkos will both make the team and the player likely have a lot of success when generated 5-on-5 offense. Because Stamkos has an extremely high hockey IQ, his anticipation on the forecheck, coupled with his vision to see the next best play, still makes him a key contributor in his mid-30s. More importantly, Nashville's defensive system may help Stamkos naturally play less in his own end. When the Preds went on that magical 16-0-2 run last season, they were first in goals against, second in expected goals against, first in inner slot shots against, and had top 5 goaltending. Despite being knocked out in the first round, their defense and goaltending was solid, finishing with the best goals against per game in the playoffs. With their box +1 structure combined with Yossi's ability to quickly get Nashville from defense to offense, Nashville's system may help curb the defensive drop-off that Stamkos is trending towards late in his career. But to top it all off, getting a player like Stamkos brings a lot of intangibles that simply can't be quantified. In these past playoffs, Stamkos was arguably Tampa's best player. He led the team in goals and was an obvious force on the power play, but when the team needed a spark, Stamkos was there to provide that boost. Whether it was laying it all on the line to block shots, throwing a big hit, or getting his team on the board, Stamkos was the heartbeat of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, with the salary cap being the way that it is, more and more teams are adopting a ruthless Vegas model that simply throws loyalty and emotion aside to build the best possible team. The New England Patriots made a dynasty with this approach in the NFL, and Vegas proved in the NHL that if you make the tough decisions, it can eventually lead to success. But sometimes it can have the opposite effect. Change one crucial piece, and it can leave a void that is simply irreplaceable. Tampa and Vegas have put their loyalty on the back burner for the sake of building a better team. Nashville, on the other hand, has doubled down on these so-called scraps who have a huge chip on their shoulder coming into next season. The only thing all these teams have in common is that they believe they're making the right decisions to build a cup winner. If this ruthless style of management continues to breed winning organizations, it may change the way the entire league constructs their rosters in the future. But for now, two teams have made a hard stance in their pursuit for a cup, and the rest of the league and its fans have to wait and see how it all plays out.